Hello everyone, and welcome to the list for my top 10 Metallica albums. Metallica is one of the most known bands of all time. Forming in 1981, they have had many hit songs and multi-platinum selling albums. Despite this, they also have had a lot of controversy around them, from short haircuts to Lars suing Napster to them working with Lou Reed of all people. Them being part of the big four of thrash metal, however, they have a ginormous fan base. Anyways, without further introduction, let's begin with the list. Alright, so this is their only album I would genuinely say is bad. This album came out in 2003, fresh after the controversy where their drummer, Lars Ulrich, sued Napster for being able to download their music for free illegally. On top of all this, the band was in a really bad place at the time. Their bassist, Jason Newsted, recently quit the band. Lars and James were fighting all the time, and James went into rehab for his anger and alcohol problems. So with this, the band themselves at their lowest, they still dropped an album around this time, and it really shows they were in a bad place. The first major problem everyone has with this album is the snare on the drumming is horrible for the entire thing. It sounds like a trash can, it's awful. On top of that, the album had no solos from Kirk Hammett, and all the songs felt way too long. The only bright spot on this album is the unnamed feeling. The rest of this album's a mess. So this was a weird time for the band. After the success of the Black Album, they took a few years to release something new, and when they did, it was a double album, Load in 1996 and Reload in 1997. They also cut their hair around this time and changed their music style from more heavy metal to hard rock on these albums. Many fans of the time were outraged and claimed they were selling out. I disagree though. With these albums, there is too much filler, I will say that, especially with Reload here. If they combine the best tracks off Load and Reload, we would have a really good album here. But what we have is just two alright albums. The standout tracks off Reload are the anthemic Memory Remains, Beautiful Where the Wild Things Are, the underrated masterpiece known as Fixer, and of course the smash hit Fuel. This one I'm going to keep short since Load and Reload sound so similar. Load, like Reload, has too much filler, including tracks like Ronnie, Cure, and the borderline country track Mama Said. However, this album definitely has a good hard rock sound to it. It has aged much better than expected. The album's standout tracks include the extremely catchy King Nothing, the heaviness of Ain't My Bitch, the beautiful lyricism of sound of Hero of the Day, and the very intriguing Outlaw Torn. Death Magnetic was a bit of a comeback album for Metallica. After not doing much for a few years after the abysmal Saint Anger, they came back with their heaviest album they've had since 1991's Black Album that got received some pretty good reception. The only thing bad with this album really is the production, with it sounding way too loud like many albums in the 2000s did. And you can't get the dynamics of the band too well because of the bad production. There's also their first album with bassist Robert Trujillo, who is very impressive and has an interesting style of playing bass. The album has musically very good moments, such as the amazing opener That Was Just Your Life, the modern version of One, The Day That Never Comes, the instrumental Suicide and Redemption, and the beautiful Unforgiven 3. This album was the last of the four major albums Metallica put out in the 80s. This one is the first album with the bassist Jason Newsted after the tragic death of Cliff Burton. This album is the weakest of the four albums they released in the 80s. At its core, these are all really good songs. However, the album's problem is length and production, in my opinion. The production is weak on this album. The most infamous problem is the lack of bass. You cannot hear the bass at all on this album, barely. The songs on this album also seem to drag a little bit. They're still good, but just seem a little too long at points. The best songs on this album are the title track, the Heavy Blackened, the classic Harvester of Sorrow, and of course, possibly one of the best songs ever, One. So, this is the album that started it all. And for a debut album, it's really good. It's a very thrashy album that shows a band starting out heavy and full of energy. The album goes from the heavy opener Hit the Lights to the catchy Four Horsemen, to the beautiful solo Pulling Teeth, to the Scream Alone Whiplash, to the concert stable Seek and Destroy. This album shows a lot of ambition and heavy undertones in this album that they're starting out with. It's a classic 80s heavy metal album. After the four classic albums in the 80s, they released their self-titled album in 1991 with many hits on it. The lead single for this album, Enter Sandman, hit the charts big time, as did the album selling Diamond. It's the Metallica song that everybody has heard. With one of the most catchy choruses of all time, it's no surprise the song was a hit. The album also came out with many amazing songs that were hits, including the heavy, sad but true, beautiful lyrics to The Unforgiven, and the classic soft song, Nothing Else Matters. This is easily going to be my most controversial pick I chose for this list, being their latest album all the way at number 3. In my opinion, though, this album is hit after hit after hit, starting off with the lead single Hardwired to the Iron Maiden sounding Atlas Rise to the groovy Now That We're Dead. The album also included what is probably the best Metallica song since one, in my opinion, Spit Out the Bone. This song is a heavy finisher to close off the album, and one of the most heavy songs they've made since Master of Puppets. This is just riffs on top of riffs on top of riffs, with interesting lyrics of how robots are going to take over humans in the world. It's a very good album. I would consider this album a modern classic. So here's the top 2. Most fans agree this album and the one before it are the best, but which one is better is a debated topic. Master of Puppets is my second favorite. Only having 8 tracks, each one's a hit. Starting with one of their best songs of all time, Battery, with the beautiful opening of the acoustic guitar right into the pounding drums. Very good song. Possibly also their most definitive track ever made, the title track, Master of Puppets. The album also includes the instrumental Orion and the song Welcome Home Sanitarium, which is a very good song discussing the lyrics of a man going insane. Also is the last album that includes the late Cliff Burton as bassist, a truly classic album. So here it is, the best album Metallica has released, the classic Ride the Lightning. This album has always been my personal favorite from Metallica, and this album just has an amazing thrashy sound to it. But it is still much more refined than their debut, Kill 'Em All. The album has amazing lyrics with the title track, the classic For Whom the Bell Tolls, the depressing Fade to Black, and the epic Creeping Death. This album, as well as Master Puppets, are both truly masterpieces. That was my list for the top 10 Metallica albums.